We'll do a review in Likkutei Sichos in Chelek Chof, volume 20, the first Sicha for Yitas Kislev, for Kislev 19. In this Sicha, the Rebbe explains a what the previous Rebbe said by a Fabrengen, which actually was on Sukkot, but over there he explained the idea and gave the parable about Chassidus. The Rebbe goes into great detail explaining the two Mesholim that the previous Rebbe said from the coals that are deep underground and from the pearls that are deep underwater. And the fact that while how to go fetch them, directions are given by the expert, but each person needs to have a pipeline connection to the ear. Otherwise, you can fail if you become a neufel, if you are not connected, you don't have oxygen, if you don't have from outside. Same thing in the water, same thing in the cholim. The Rebbe explains the two misholim, what is the coals and what is the marshal of the pearls. The coals are necessities, and the marshal and the pearls are sort of luxury. And the Rebbe explains also the connection to the ground, to the Adama, and to the Yam, and a lot of interesting details. The Rebbe will explain the precise words of the Frierdiker Rebbe, but let's go step by step. Yutes Kislev Aleph. Kveit Kidushas Merichome Admur, my father-in-law, the Rebbe, hat amol in a Sukkot Sicha, once in a Sicha that he gave over on Sukkot, gegeben a moshul of inyan hachasidus. He gave a parable for what Chasidus is. That's the language. And the Rebbe is going to quote the entire language that the Frierdiker Rebbe said. And this is what he said. Margolios, which is pearls, gefindt man auf von Deck von Yam. We find them on the bottom of the ocean. Gecholim, coals, and what we do with coals was they machen lichtig und warm. They bring light, and they make warm. Gefinnen sich beimke ha'adama, they find themselves, the pearls, the coals, in the depth of the ground. The seder in them is, so what is the order in it? As darf sein einer an Anführer. You need someone who leads the group, welcher weist on wo zu graben, which shows where to dig, und wie soll zu gefinnen die Gecholim, and how to find the coals, is auf der Chochma von dem Anführer, so on the wisdom of the leader, können sich die Arbeiter verlassen. They can rely, the workers can rely on his wisdom to know where and how to dig to get the coals. However, they need to follow the instructions precisely in detail. Nor they darfen folgen pinklich. They must listen exactly was der Führer sagt, what the leader tells them. Aber von deswegen, but yet, while they can totally rely on the leader to direct them where and how to get the coals, but yet the Ruach Chaim was jederer darf haben, the living spirit that each one needs to have, zeindig beimke ha'adama, that while you're in the depth, in the ground, von dem avir was me'ala oretz, from the ear which is on top of the ground, they need that ear to breathe while they're on the ground from the ear on top of the ground. Auf dem können sie sich nicht verlassen auf dem Ruach Chaim, was der Anführer hat. That they cannot rely on the spirit of life which the leader has. His spirit of life, they can rely on his directions, but the life and the spirit of life that they need, they can rely on the leader. Jeder Arbeiter, each worker, bardarf alein hobunais chabrus ruach chaim, needs to have their own connection of the spirit of life from them avir vosme is ma'al ha'adomo, from the ear which is on top of the ground. Unaibnit, if a worker does not have that pipeline, that connection, that ear that comes from above the ground, God forbid, he fails, he falls. Das heißt, bleibt on chayis, he remains without vitality. Can't rely on the leader. You have to have your own connection. If you don't have your own connection to the ear on top, then you can't live. Then you fail. Then you fall. That's as far, the Rebbe says, as far as the coals that you're digging in the depth of the earth. The selbe Zach is mit dem, was lost sich herab in Wasser zu gefinnen die Margolis. The same thing applies to the one who descends into the water to find the pearls. Muzer hobna ruach chaim fun ma'al ha'adoma. He must have the spirit of life from on top of the ground. He must have the oxygen. He must have the pipeline, the connection from on top of the ground that vitalizes him while he's in the depth of the ocean and the sea. Und der Rebbe hat dann ausgeführt, and the Rebbe concluded. Then the Rebbe is still quoting his father-in-law at the Fabrengen of Sukkos Fabrengen. As the Nimshel can jeder allein verstehen, the parable of this, everybody knows how to apply this on their own. Chasidus macht lichtig und warm, kemoshel hagecholim. Chasidus makes light, brings light, and brings warmth. Kemoshel hagecholim, like the coals. They bring light and they make warm. Nor men darf sich aroplosen beimke ha'adomo. But one needs to descend in the depth of the ground in order to sort out things. So while we have the light and we have the warmth, but you have to go down into the ground to mevarezayin. Nor as men los sich arop beimke ha'adomo. When you descend, you lower yourself down into the depth of the ground. Darf men sein zugebunden zu oben. You need to be tied to the top. Und da muss hat man chayis. That's when you have chayis. So they concluded over there the parable that the lesson is that Chassidus makes light and warmth. But the fact you have to go down into the depth of the ground and you need to still be tied to on top, that's when you have the chais. That was the talk that he gave. So the Rebbe, everything has to be precise. Why does he have to need two examples, one of the coals and then of the pearls? And why does the Rebbe elaborate only about the coals, and by the pearls, he just makes it short? He doesn't say how it works by the pearls. He just by the coals. And what's the connection that everyone wants to know between coals and the ground and pearls and the ocean? The Rebbe will explain all that. But looks inside base. As he's move on upashut, it's understood and it's obvious. As jeder prat in dem moshul is bediuk, that every detail in this parable is precise. Und masim zum nimshol, and it fits the nimshol, what we're trying to learn from it. Darf man verstehen, so therefore we need to understand in what the Friedrich Rebbe said. Aleph, number one. Pravoso the Rebbe gegeben a moshul von zwei Sachen. Why did he give the parable from two things? First, gecholim shebeimke ha'adomo, coals that are in the depth of the earth, und margolia shebeyam, and the pearls that is in the ocean. Und sich nicht benuget mit einem von sie. Why wasn't he satisfied bringing one example? Why does he need two examples? Number two, base. Afal Pias the Rebbe on game mitten Moshum von Margolius, he brings down, he starts off with the pearls that are in the bottom of the ocean, but then he goes away to discuss the coals that are under the ground. Is over der Iker Arichas in Moshul, when Gecholim, the main length in the Moshul is about the coals. Und noch mehr, and even more, not only is the great length about the Gecholim, in Nimshul hat der Rebbe ausgeteilt nur dem Inyan HaGecholim. In the lesson from this Moshul, the Rebbe only interpreted just the coals. He doesn't interpret it. And he doesn't mention at all about the pearls. Doesn't the time of boy just needs the reasoning. Why is he more spending time about the parable with the coals than about the Margolius? So first of all, why do we need two examples altogether? And why does he spend more time with this? As the Rebbe will explain later on, that the essential part of the marshal, what a person must have, is the gecholim, because that gives warmth and light. Pearls is already a kind of a delicacy. That's a luxury, sort of. Though that's why that's not. That's how the Rebbe will explain it. We'll see further on. Now, the Rebbe does say in his talk that it's self-understood. Maybe the reason the Rebbe doesn't articulate what the nimshal from the pearls is because he means that you can understand it on your own. But we see that he does articulate the lesson from the coals. So how come he spends and goes into details about the coals and not about the pearls? This is very difficult to say. As Ribal, the Rebbe Messiah given, since the Rebbe concluded, as dem Nimshol ken yederer allein verstehen, that the lesson of the Nimshol everybody can understand, hat sich verlost, as man wird allein verstehen dem in Hamirgolius uli proto Nimshol, so that the person will understand on their own what the idea of the pearls are and all the details in the lesson in the Nimshal. So very difficult to say this because he does articulate, he does elaborate with regards to the coals, because as far as the coals, he does interpret in Nimshal in the lesson. He doesn't rely that you will figure it out on your own, you'll understand it on your own. Darfun is mashma, so from this it appears, it sounds like, as der Iker was is negayet zu wissen, that the main thing which is important to know is das was Chassidus is kemoshla gecholim, the fact that Chassidus is like the example from the coals. And then now in number 3, the Rebbe also says we have to say that there is a relationship between coals and the earth and pearls and water, not just because the coals happen to be in the earth and the pearls in the water, but there must be some meaningful connection between coals and the earth and pearls and the water. Gimel, jeder inyan was bringt sich in Torah is betachlis adiyuk. Every aspect that is brought down in Torah is totally precise. Darf man sagen, we need to say, as the shaykhs from Gecholim to Adama, that the connection from coals to the earth, und Margolius to Yam, and pearls to the sea, is nicht nur, weil das is der Ort, wo sie gefinnen sich begashmi. It's not only because that's the place where they physically are. The coals are in the ground and the pearls are in the water. But we have to say that's not the only reason. Norbalas is do ashaychus pnimis. There is an inner connection in Teuchen zwischen in between the pearls and the water and the coals and the earth. Hat man verstehen, so we need to understand, was is the Sheiches in Teuchern zwischen Gecholim und zu Adama, what's the content, what's the connection between coals and the earth, und Margolius to Yam, and the pearls to the sea, what is the connection? So now in Nois Gimel, the Rebbe will explain the difference between the Adama, the ground, and the ocean, in which the creatures that live on the earth, while they come from the Adama and they are nurtured with the Adama, but they do not appear to be connected to the ground, whereas the creatures of the sea, they have to be always in the ocean, otherwise they die if they leave, which represents that there is the creations that the way they feel themselves, either as an entity like Adomo, or they feel like themselves like in the Yam, that they are encompassed by godliness. Let's look inside. Gimel. Der Chiluk zwischen Adomo and Yam is Mavur, is explained, the difference between Adom and Yam is explained Bekama Mekaimes in many places. Men versteht and von dem Chilik zwischen den Nivroim Sha'al Pnei HaAdama, between the creatures which are on the face of the earth, and the Bruim Shebiyam, and the creatures in the ocean. That will give us an understanding on the difference of the ground, the earth, and the ocean. Says the Chakoil Hoyam Min HaOfar. Everything comes from the offer, as Pasuk in Kahelis. Altis Bashafen Gevorim Min HaOretz. Everything was created from the ground. So the creation of everything comes from the ground. Univroim seine Makabel Zer Chayis Min HaOretz. And the created being received their vitality from the ground. The ground produces the food. Eretz mimena yetze lachem, is quoting the pasuk, the land, the earth, from which bread comes forth, which sustains the person. Aber von deswegen, but yet, zet men nit la'achre shenivra hanivra. You don't see after the being has been created. Ken kishur v'chipur tzvishun the nivroim b'der adama, any tie, any connection between the created being with the ground from which they come from. They look like separate. Mashenkin dibruim shebiyam, as opposed to the creatures of the ocean, dogim, which is the fish, is kishapershim and ayam miyadei mesim. As soon as they separate from the ocean, they die. They muzen sich gefinnen b'mekor chayusam. They must always find themselves in the source of their life, in the water. The water is their source of their life, and they have to be in the water all the time. Was the far state, was therefore it is stated, as Yam is a moshul of the Oilamos, that the Ayam is a parable about those worlds on the spiritual level, with their koyach eliki, in which, in that level, in those worlds, in the high levels of the worlds, where the godly power was is a mahave mechayu mekayim, which brings them into being, vitalizes them, and sustains them. That godly power is made in begilui. That's openly. They feel they're in the yam, meaning they sense the godliness. In that world, they sense that godliness. Azoi, to such an extent as the Nivroim feelun, the created being feel, sie müssen ständig sein zugebunden zu Moker Chayesum. They must always be tied to the source of their vitality. If they don't remain tied to the source of their vitality, they lose their exist them and they're sustained. They cannot live without godliness. They feel that godliness is their life and they cannot live, they cannot remain, and they must always be connected to the source. Was der Fall, werden die Olmos angerufen Olmos Timim. Those are referred to in the Kabbalah. We call these worlds the hidden worlds. Why are they the hidden worlds? Well, the Mitzias, the Yeshus from the Olamas, because the entities, the uh, and the self feeling of feeling of self, these worlds is zugedeckt. You don't see that mechuse in their mucker. They're covered by their source. Al derech v'dogim shebiyam, like the fish in the water. You don't see the fish; they're covered because these worlds, you don't feel them as a world, as an entity, as a yesh, but it's stimming because they are in their mucker, they're feeling they're under the godliness. That would be the example of Yah. As opposed to when we talk about Oretz, Mashenkin Oretz, is a moshul. That is an example of the Olamais with the Nivroim Filon Nitem Koyachaliki. That's a parable for those worlds with the created being don't feel the godly power, those bashavtse, that creates them. They filunit zeir kesher mit moker chayosim. They don't feel their tie with the source of their life. They don't feel that they have to be, that they're connected to Hashem, that it creates them. They don't feel that godly power. They feel themselves as an entity. Und der Pfarr werden sie angerufen, in this Gallion. They're called the world that revealed. Their Mitzias is aplekt, their entity is revealed. They feel sich als a Sach für sich. They feel themselves as an entity for themselves. So this is the difference between Yam and Yabosha. Yam represents the hidden worlds, which means the feeling, the sensing of godliness all the time that you must have Hashem. The revealed worlds, that's a sense that you feel that you're an entity. You don't need Hashem. You don't feel that. That's why it's a revealed, the entity is revealed over there. Und das ist euch der Nekudas Abir in the zwei Sachen im Moshel. This is the point of explanation in the two items in the example. Gecholim sheba adomo umargolius shebeyam. The coals in the ground and the pearls in the sea. Val di pu'ula from Chasidus in nefesh ha'odom, because the impact of Chasidus in the human soul teltzer bechlolus in zwei. Generally, you can split it into two parts. Aleph in Galia Shabbat, one in the revealed part of the person. Pchinas Adoma Shaboy, the level of the Adoma, the earth which is in the person. Un Sosim Shabbat, and then in the hidden, the closed of the person, Pchinas Yam Shaboy, in the level of the Yam, Kidl Kamon, that is in the person, the level of Yam, as we will see later on. So the person has the revealed part, the part that he does his avodah with in a revealed way. That's the Galia. And that's the example of the coals on the ground. The person also has the inner of the Sosim Shabbatim. That's the Yam. And that's the example of Margolius. And that's why we need both of these Mishal. And the Rebbe starts off by explaining that the old question is, why do we have Hasidus in our generation when our generation seems to be going lower? The previous generation didn't have Hasidus, and now we do. So generally the explanation is either because we have more struggles and challenges now, so we need Hasidus to help us in our challenges, or because since we're approaching the time of Mashiach, as a preparation, there is Hasidus, which is similar to the teaching that Mashiach will translate. And these two differences make a big difference from the perspective of the person's revealed part Because if we say that there's a lot of darkness, so to overcome the darkness, that's talking about the revealed part that we have to struggle. So we need more power to be able to overcome the darknesses. So that's more connected to the Galia, to the revealed part of the soul. But then you have also the preparation for Mashiach, which is mainly the inner part of the soul to bring a higher level of connection. Let's look inside. Dalit. Wird man das verstehen, behagdim von the Hasboris, by introducing of some of the explanation of them, was Hasidus is nisgal geworden, bedeutet Achronim Davke, that Hasidus has been revealed specifically in the later generation. The Lechaira, the question is, Achshir Dora Bitmia, which is the generation, has it then become better? Bitmia, in other words, this is rhetorically, meaning the world has not become better. So why is Chassidus revealed only in our generation? So the explanation of Mehen, the Rebbe brings down two explanations. Number one, since the darkness of the exile keeps on becoming greater, the darkness is increasing. So we need to have a higher light in order to be able to overcome this darkness. That's why the soul of Torah was revealed to give us the power that we need. She arouses and reveals the deeper hidden powers of the soul, the sosim de neshama, the hidden of the soul. So we have the Hasidus teaching to wake us up and bring hidden powers that we have so that we can overcome the struggles that we have now, the more darkness that we got to deal with. And number two, the other explanation, since we're already towards the end of the time of the exile, when we need to prepare ourselves for the redemption that is destined to come. So we need to prepare now. When you prepare, you got to have the preparation similar to what you're preparing for. So we need to prepare for Mashiach. There needs to be similar, somewhat of the item to which you're preparing for. Is gegeben geworden. There's other explanation. That's why it was given. A me'ain, somewhat of unatima, and a taste from them gilu the losid lovely, from the revelation of the future to come. The losid. Aderech ve'estet in Kislev HaRizal, similar to what is written in the writings of Rizal. Und es wird darauf gebracht, la halacha in Mogen Avram. It's also brought down. La halacha in the Mogen Avram, v'shulchan aruch Admar HaZoken, and the Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe. Balagula Vasimcha, who is the master of the redemption and the joy, because it's Yutas Kislev, is the celebration. It was when the Rebbe gave the Sicha. As Erev Shabbos darf man versuchen von dem Macholim von Shabbos, that on the eve of Shabbos, you need to taste of the foods of Shabbos. Temel Chaim Zochu. As he quotes the verse, those who taste it merit life. That means we have to taste before the Shabbos. So before Mashiach, before the Osid Love, as we're getting closer, we should taste me'ain of what's going to be in Osid Love. And that's why we have now Chassidus revealed now. Von the Chilukim zwischen the zwei Hasboris is what is the difference between these two explanations. So one of the differences, Leuten ersten Tam, according to the first reason, as Chassidus bavoren von Choshech HaGolus, that Chassidus protects us from the darkness or cautions us and helps us from the darkness of the exile, is das verbunden mit the Koiches HaGaluyim shebe'odam. That's tied to the revealed parts of the person. welche führen die Milchome mit dem Golus. Because those are the parts that lead the war with the exile. Seinen koivish gufei v'nafsha b'hamish, they conquer his body, his animal soul, v'chelka b'oil, the portion of the world. That's all done with the revealed parts. That's the person's revealed parts that he battles to conquer all of his body, his animal soul, his portion of the world. So, dur Chassidus, so when we learn Chassidus, Vertin reingegeben hat Tekev. So it is brought into, it was given into them a force from Pnimius Besosim HaNeshama. In the revealed koiches are given in a force from the inner and the hidden of the neshama, so you should be able to overcome the darknesses of the world. Even the double and quadruple darkness of these later generations. So that's according to the reasoning to be able to battle, to add, because we need darkness. That's only have Chassidus to help with the revealed koiches, those koiches that battle to help them successfully against the darkness. As opposed to the second reasoning, as Chassidus is at the ima, that Chassidus is a taste of the revelation of the future, is das nicht an Inyan von Bewohnern sich von Cheshach. So then this is not the matter of protecting yourself from darkness. That happens too. That becomes automatically. But that's not what the Chassidus you're given to you, not to battle the Cheshach. The Cheshach is automatically falls apart. But in order to unite yourself with godliness, this difference between whether it's to battle the cheshach or it is to connect to godliness, the masim leyadua, this fits that is known as leosud lo vevetzayin di avoda, that in the future to come, this service is not levader birurim, to sort out birurim. Hashem will remove the spirit of impurity from the land. Only elevations from strength to strength within Kedusha itself. But das is verbunden mit Sosim den Ishmoso mitzad atzma. That is associated, this going from level to level, not the battles against it, but that's connected to the hidden of the on its soul. It's not a koyach from the sosim that you give to the koyches geluyim, but is the sosim of the neshama, the soul itself, that hidden level of the neshama, which is associated with these elevations, mitzad atzmo, v'ziz ein zach kaviyochel, mitzosim the kuchabricha, which is really like one thing, so to speak, with the hidden of kuchabricha. Yisrael v'kuchabricha kulchat, the Yidden and Hashem is one. Wir bald as der erster Inyan zu bewahren sich von Cheshach. And since the first matter, I have to protect yourself, to caution yourself from darkness, is a hechlich gomer in avodas adam l'koinot. That's an absolute necessity to serve Hashem, to the master, to Hashem. We need to stay away from the darkness. In the language that my father-in-law wrote, is there sichanal nit verna nefel rachman l'sad, so that you don't become falling down, God forbid, on chayis, that you don't have no life. That's why it's compared. That aspect of Chassidus that helps you, sustains you from not falling and remain alive. It's equated to Gecholim, lichtik and varim, because that's what coals do. They give light and they make warm. In Yonim Hachrachim and Leben for mention could come on. Those are necessities in the life of the person, as the Rebbe will say later on. They also gecholim, the idea of warmth and light. Masha'enkin the pu'ula from Chasidis. But on the other hand, this effect that Chassidus have in sosim the nishmosu b'fnei atzma, independently in the hidden part of the soul, to connect it to Hashem as independent, not as part of the struggle of the world, the souls, with the revealed part, that's compared to pearls. The far was bisman hagolus, because in the time of exile is nit dos that inya shel hechrech kol kach. That's not so important. The pearls. Norazal was mach the mentioned shender kemosh lamargolis. It's only something that makes the person more beautiful. It's not essential. It's not like the coal that makes light and gives you warmth, but this is extra. Makes you more beautiful. So that second aspect, which is not as essential, is compared to the Yam Margolus. Und das ist der Tame. This is the reason for was der Iker Arichas and their Sicha. The main lengthy discussion, the Sicha is wegen the Cholim, is with regards to coals, und nicht wegen Margolius, and not about the pearls. Weil der Inyan in Chassidus is Muchrach in Avodas Odom Itzlach Choderosh, because that aspect in Chassidus, to overcome the darkness, to have the Chassidus help us in our struggle, that is absolutely necessary in the service first. And then the second thing is getting pearls, making beautiful, the second aspect of Chassidus. So that's not as essential. And that's why the Rebbe spends mainly talking about the example of the coal, which gives light and warmth, which is essential, and not so much about the margolis, which is like the pearls. And the Rebbe is going to articulate this idea in detail now. I say, so now the Rebbe will bring the explanation, explain to us specifically what it means, the Friedrich Rebbe in the Sicha, that the coals bring warmth, warmth and light. Warmth means the person, warmth and light are not new things. It's there. You just warm up and you bring light, meaning that it's not a new Inyan in Torah. Chassidus is not new, but rather it warms and illuminates. And the warmth is the energy that a Yid has from Chassidus. And also it illuminates the person to be able to see, not only to do it, but to appreciate this. And as we'll see inside. Hey, the Bir in them beprotius, the explanation in detail. In them Inyana Gecholim Zog the Rebbe, when with regards to the calls, the Rebbe says Tzvei Yonim, he says two matters. Ze machen lichtig und warm. They make light, the coals, and warmth, and warm. Was der Tzad HaShove von the zwei Sachen is, the common denominator between light and warmth are not that there is anything new about it, but they bring wholesomeness in what already exists. Chassidus brings wholesomeness in what already there is. Varmkeit, which is the siman of chayis, warmth, which is the sign of life. Unlichtigkeit, and light, the sign for life is warmth, because that body is cold. Life is warm. And light, these seinen nit moisiv kenaye protim in azach. They don't add any new details to a matter. nor they too and oif what they accomplish as the Zach Gufa, was is da from Freire Musa, the item itself, which exists fully beforehand, completely, Zolverum Varim Lebedik, unlichtig, to become warm, alive, and lighting, and illuminated. Al derech zeh is Teiras HaChasidus. And similar to this is the teaching of Chasidus. This is the example that the Moshel that the Rebbe gives, the Friedrich Rebbe gives on Chasidus. Chasidus hat nit meisig wenn Chas v'sholom kinai in yonim und Torah. God forbid, it did not add new matters in Torah. In Torah is nit shayich kein shinui. In Torah doesn't fit any change. Giroin other tesafis, whether taking away other or additions. Therefore, this is nothing new that came. Oich far gilui Torah Chasidus, even before the revelation of the teaching of Chasidus is given der kiyum kol hataryag mitzvahs b'shleimus, the observant fulfillment of all the 613 mitzvahs completely. That was there before Chasidus was revealed. Not ober gedarft haben, but what was necessary, we needed to have when in Welt is geworden kälter finsterer, when in the world it got colder and darker, bis a gor groise keltun cheshach, to this extent it's very severe cold, big cold, very and dark, very strong and very dark. It needed, therefore, a gilui from lebedigkeit and warmkeit. We needed a revelation of livelihood and warmth, unlichtigkeit, and light in the Rasi and what we're doing. So the doing was there before, but we needed to warm up, and because of the cold and the dark, we needed to warm it up and illuminate it. But this is the entver of the Shalas HaChodim, which is the response actually to what several ask against learning Hasidus. They say that's not their tradition. How could we ask them to change the tradition? But since it's a different circumstances in the world, as the Rebbe will explain, if you keep your windows open in the summer, you can't keep them open in the winter because you keep them open in the summer. In the summer, it's not cold, so you have the windows open, but in the winter when it's cold, so it's Chassidus wasn't necessary in the olden time when it wasn't cold outside. So this is the answer of Shailas Achodim. My Sabi Seinu B'Yedenu. Our father's action is our, we go by, in our hands we have what our fathers did. Und sein Zayda and his grandfather, Fardem Gilu Habashem Tov V'Toyres HaChasidus, before the Baal Shem Tov's revelation and the teaching of Chasidus, is Ois Gikumen only with Chasidus. He survived without learning Chasidus. He managed. He managed without limud Chasidus. So that's the complaint. But Era Lane Beisober, however, you, the one who's asking the question, he knows, however, as by sein Zayden is given Varamer und Lichtiker. By his grandfather, it was warmer and more light, Vishalei Be'erach, and uncomparably more warmer and lighter than now. Und also in sein ganzen Dörr, and so in his entire generation of his grandfather. Ichshar Dora Bitmia is our generation got any better? That's rhetorically. We're a much worse off generation, a lower generation, a darker generation. This is be similar to the proof and the decision. This is that not to study Hasidus because his grandfather didn't do that, would can be compared to the proof and the decision. Since in this season of Tammuz, in the summer months, darfer nit heizen dem oven, he did not needed to warm the oven Und darf nicht vermachen die Tür und Fenster zum Gassen, doesn't need to close the door and the window to the street, not to allow the cold in. That he doesn't have to, or you can lay, you don't need to, you can keep it open because the cold doesn't bother you. But he makes a decision, okay, I will do this also in the cold. That doesn't make any sense. Different times require different behavior. Chassidus, durch dem, was sie ist mekalle, die Pnimis haneshama von Aiden. Chassidus, through that it reveals the inner of the soul of a Yid. Hat sie hereingetragen Chayis und Eur in alle Inyone Teiro Mitzvahs. It brought in the energy and light in all aspects of Teiro Mitzvahs. Und das ist von der Haupt hat Goshes von Teiros HaChassidus. And this is of the main emphasis of the teaching of Chassidus. As Havodas Havaye Muzay mit Chayis v'Simcha. That the service of Hashem needs to be with energy, with passion, and with joy. Only Idach Gisa, and on the other hand, so the service needs to be with excitement, with simcha. And on the other hand, Hadgosha Sasakona, to emphasize the danger from a lacking or even a weakening of the energy. The sakone from krirus chas v'sholem, the danger that lies in coldness, God forbid. Was is der siman unhepa from Chaim Wolosow, which is the sign and opposite of life, God forbid. To show how important it is to do this service with simcha and how dangerous it is without, if there is no energy from being cold and apathetic. That's the sign. Coldness is opposite of life, meaning that we need life. Chassidus taught us about the energy needed. So that's the level of chayis. What's the level of light? The chayis in that lights that you can see beyond. The chayis in avodas havaya can aber sein obgemost. The energy in the service of Hashem can, however, be measured. Loit dem teva hodam, according to the nature of the person. So you can have your specific measured energy. Al derech yeder bal chai basot doch chayus. Similar to every living thing has energy. But not only do living matter have, animals or living creatures have energy, on the contrary, the energy from many living animals is even override, is even more greater, is with more warmth than the category of the human being, of the medaber. Aber der chayis von abal chay is loit zayin taba. However, it's measured. The energy of the bal chay is according to its nature. Can it turn anders von zayin taba? He cannot go do different than what is his nature. The oiftu von Eden, the novelty about a yid is niet nor was is warm. Not only that he is warm on his own. Unoich warm tzat need also warm to another yid. You're warm, accepting to another yid. Nor was it hot bekoyach zu machen lichtig bei sich. The fact that he has the power, the human being has the power to bring light to himself. Which means, what does that mean? Zu zen be'ein sichloi. So that he can see with the eye of his intellect, meaning intellectually you can realize, appreciate, as we say, ha'chocham einov beroishay. The wise has his eyes in his head. The question is, so where is in the Tanya discusses from the Zohar? So where is the eyes? What does it mean? Everybody's eyes in the head. Bereisha means on the head, on Hashem, who's on the top over his head, Bahu, the Sharia al Reisha, by the one that is resting on his head. So a Chokram appreciates and sees above. He sees Hashem, which means nit vi'im unarum sich will sich, not as he and around him desires, not his wants, his uh, uh, personal desires, nor the as darf the way it needs to be, not what he wants, but the way it should be. He sees the thing unton, and then you can do afilu vendos is nit lifitiva, even it's not the nature. The animal does what's its nature, but a person can see and do beyond his nature, vafilu hepechtiva, and even to do things that are just the opposite of his nature. The Gemara says with the Gemara Zokt, the Gemara says that could be as es ken sein, einer wo soll sein abgehit in alle ramach mitzvos b'shasa mitzvos loisasa. Somebody who's careful in all the 248 positive mitzvahs and all the 365 prohibition. Und tut sie mit chayes, and he does it with energy. Und von deswegen wird angerufen loy avode, and yet he is referred to as one who is not serving Hashem. Therefore, was tut nit hepech tivai, that because he is not doing against his nature, then you're not serving Hashem, because serving means, because the Yid has that chayis, that light to go ahead and do and see things and to work beyond. The Gemara says if he doesn't do beyond his nature, he's not serving Hashem. Kidei, as the Gemara says, to do the will of Hashem. As the Gemara says over there, that's why the Gemara answers the contradiction of the Psukim. And one person says that the Goyim will do your work for you, and another pasuk says, well, Safta, you'll do. And the Gemara says, you need to be the loizim that to go up at the higher level of doing what Hashem's wills, which means going against the nature. Muzayin da avodah from b'chol me'idecha. You have to have b'chol me'idecha. That's why the second parsha, where it only says b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshcha, not b'chol me'idecha, it's because you're not really doing the will of Hashem, because you're not breaking yourself. You're still loy avodah. In order to get to the higher level, you need to b'chol me'idecha. Ton hecher from the medidas v'hagbolis for zayin teva. Like in the first parsha, when it says b'chol me'idecha, to do higher than the measures and the limits of his nature. Was das wert? How does this become? Durch dem was is lichtig, that it's light. That is what meaning of light. Light means that you can see and do more than what is your nature. Since these two aspects of warmth, the chayis, the energy, and the light to be able to see beyond and do different than the nature, Zainen an inyan pnimi in seder ha'avodah v'toina from toina mitzvahs, they're an inner matter of the order of service Torah mitzvahs. The Riber, therefore, that's why, as the Rebbe says, the Friedke Rebbe says in the Siche, darf sein einer an Anführer, welcher weist on dem Seder HaAvodah. Therefore, there needs to be one who is a leader, which points out how the work needs to be done. That's the way the work, the gecholim, how one should go ahead and achieve and the order of this warmth and light. Who are the leaders? Was those Zainen Rabbi Seinu Nisienu B'chol Der V'der. Our Rebbes, our leaders of every generation, was given a them Seder HaAvodah. They present the order of the work, and not only how we should work zusammen mit den Sinas Koyach, they also give it along, comes along with the power that they give us. Wie me soll sich der Warmen, how one should warm up, machen lichtig bei sich und sich, and to bring light by himself and around him, in his surroundings. Und auf der Chochma von dem Anführer können sich die Arbeiter verlassen. And on the wisdom of the leader, the workers can rely that he's going to guide them correctly. Nur sie dürfen folgen, pinklich, was der Führer sagt, but they must listen. They must obey exactly that which the leader tells them. So that's the beginning of the moshel. And then so the moshel is that the Rebbes are the ones that are the guides, and they are the ones that teach us from the Hasidus, the both levels of warmth and level of light. Warmth is the energy which we should have, the passion which Hasidus says is important. And it's important now because when it's darker, we need to have more darker and colder, so we need to have more energy and more to combat it, and therefore we need it. And the light specifically is to also go beyond your passion and without your energy, which a human being has the possibility to do even against. These are necessary steps in Avodah, and the Rebbe teaches to us. But then the Rebbe continue to the Sikha to tell us, but the person needs to do the work himself. Cannot just say, I'm following the Rebbe's order, but you must invest in it and have that Ruach Chaim itself, as the Rebbe will elaborate now. Both. Of the Reif is the Rebbe Maisif noch an Inyan in der Sikha. So on top of this, the Rebbe adds another aspect in the Sikha. Aber, quoting, aber von deswegen der Ruach Chaim, was jeder darf haben, that spirit of life that each one needs to have, of them können sie sich nicht verlassen, on that they cannot rely of the Ruach HaChaim, on the spirit of life was der Anführer heart that the leader had. They can't rely on that. Jeder Arbeiter bedarf allein haben Haischabrus Ruach Chaim Chulu. Every worker needs to have his own connection, his pipeline of life. Each one needs to be a Ruach Chaim by himself. Man kann doch meinen, why does he have to caution that? Because one can think, as we bald men verlost sich auf der Chochma von dem Anführer, since we are relying on the wisdom of the leader, man darf ihm folgen pinklich, and we need to listen to him exactly genau, is genug de Mesiras Haratzon allein. So then it's sufficient just to give over your will, do what he wants, and you don't have to do anything about it. It's not about you, it's just follow. And the Rebbe brings down that the Einer hat amol geteinet, one argued once, Mizolim anschreiben jeden Prat, that he wants to be written down. The Rebbe should write for him every jeden Prat, every detail from Aleph bis Tov, starting from Aleph until the last letter of Tov. Bosser darf ton, whatever he needs to do, just spell it out. Und wird folgen, and he will listen to everything, weil halt by Mesiras Haratzon, because he is at the level, willing to give over his will, do whatever the Rebbe tells him to do. Aber allein horeven und trachten will nicht, but to work hard and think, he doesn't want it, he just wants you tell me what to do and I will do. So that's what the Rebbe is cautioning over here. Sagt man, so we say, as zusammen mit dem Mesiras Haratzon, that along with devotion and giving over your will, Musman Hoban Aganza, we need a complete Akoima Shlema, a whole story. We need all of the person. We need his intellect and emotion. You can't just rotzen, okay, give over the will. You need to bring in Also, the whole entire stack of the uh, complete person, mit Chabad Seichel, that is with his intellect, Chochmah bin Adas, the intellect Chagas, Midas with emotions, Unihi Asi and doing. Nor the Koima Shlema, but you can't do, but this entire human story, the whole person darf man einspannen. You need to muzzle it and to durchfinden am Ratzam Shalech, to do the will of the one that sends you. Zu folgen pinklich was der Führer sagt, to listen exactly that the leader says, but you cannot avoid your own Chabad and your own Chagas, just the Ratzon. You need to everything. Und das ist, was der Rebbe sagt in der Sicha, that's what the Rebbe is saying in the Sicha, as benegehe dem Ruach Chaim, was jeder darf haben, that as far as it relates to that spirit of life that each one needs to have, kann man sich nicht verlassen auf dem Ruach HaChaim. You cannot rely on the spirit of life was der Anführer hat, that the leader has. Nicht wie die Shita, it is unlike the view. There's another view that says, Tzadik b'emanoso yichya. A tzaddik lives, the Pasuk says, with his belief. That's his life. And the translation, Atikra Yichya Elo Yichaya, don't pronounce it that he lives, but also he vitalizes he makes others live with his emunah. So others have the view as menfarlos von tzaddik, that you rely on the tzaddik as ervet mechaye zayin, that he will vitalize. No yeder badarf alein habunais chabrus ruachayim. Everybody on their own needs to have their own connection. By yourself, you need a connection of Ruach Chaim. What does it mean in simple words? In Pashto Wörter, in simple words. One must have a set time every day and day in Limud HaChasidus to learn Chasidus. Unit al limud b'shitch. It's not just a superficial study, nor take horeven, but to actually work hard to verstehen Chassidus, to understand Chassidus. Bis mevet filum by sich as mal gehorvet, till you feel that you worked hard. That's the Ruach Chaim. You need to do it on your own. Dos mustake zayin b'chol yom v'yom. And this must be every day and day mamish. You cannot rely, say, oh, I learned, I'm already full, I know so much. Like them, but that is moli v'godish, that he's full, overfull. He knows already so many discourses, memorim, and he knows it orally. Oh, that you can't rely on that, what he already knows. Or that I feel like them was erst nechten gehorvet, and even and that just yesterday he put so much work in if a Maimer Chasidis on a Chasidic Maimer. Nor mermuz machen the ischabrus mit Ruach Chaim b'chol yom v'yom v'chodesh. You must make that connection with the spirit of life on every day new. While in Chaim is nichayach and hefsek. You need to do it every day because in life you can't make an interruption. You can't live Sunday and Tuesday and Monday be dead. If you're dead on Monday, you're not going to live on Tuesday. So it needs to be continuous. Chassidus, you need to learn always. You can't rely. You have to continuously study it. This is, as we see in vitality, literally, that you can't interrupt. Life is not interruptible. And one will argue, he wants to be alive on Sunday and Tuesday, not in vision, Monday, but in between. On Monday, he wants to rest from his life. Per statement, so it's self-understood. As damot is chas v'sholom nitot der dinstig, then God forbid you won't have the Tuesday if you make a break in life. So you have to have life needs to be continuous. The Rike darf man gedenken. But mainly, it's important to remember, this is all what the Rebbe says, each one needs to have the Ruach Chaim. Mainly, we have to remember, Ados meint men take in Poil Mamish, that what we're talking here is literally in practical, actual action. Und take in Mamish, and we're actually talking to him, the person himself. Und nicht wie is given Nächten, and not talking as he was yesterday, nor where he's heint, aufgestanden in the free, as getting up this morning. He got his renewed soul again anew. Chadoshim labekorim. The mornings is the renewal. The chadoshim, he gets the new neshama, a new vitality. Dafür von das Naim Chader sein dem Kesher. You need to again renew that, not that time with the Ruach Chaim. Durch Akviyas and Limud HaChasidus, by setting up time, by this set time for learning Chassidus, mit anayin cheshek, with a new enjoyment, biz ve'ener v'sloilom yom, as if you never learned it. That's how enjoyed and that's how much satisfaction you get, as if it's something new that you've never done before. It's chadoshim. That's the intent, that you constantly need that. Und durch dem wird die Avoide b'meshech kol hayoim sein mit Warmkeit und Lichtigkeit kedeboy. Then the work during the day will be with warmth and with proper light kedeboy as necessary. So besides the fact that the Rebbe is the one that directs how to get the warmth and how to get the light, how to change things around the passion and to see and go beyond your nature, the person needs to do the Hasidus study themselves on a daily basis without any interruption. And that's the pipeline. That's what you need to do. We cannot rely that the leader's chayis is also to us. We need our own chayis. And now the Rebbe explains in Zion that that is as far as the mashal of kol, but then there's also the idea of pearls, which is not as necessary as the vital importance of the coals of the warmth and the light. Let's look inside Zion. Das alles ist der Inyan HaGechol. This is the idea of the coals of Chassidus, was is verbunden, which is tied mit Bechinas Adoma, with the ground, the Galia Sheba the revealed part in the person. Now we're saying the revealed part of the person, the Gecholim, that's the even though it's at the depth of the ground, it's not so revealed. The Gecholim gefinden sich take beimke ha'adoma, while the coals find themselves in the depth of the ground. Was weist apnimis ha'adam, it means the inner of the person. Aber das ist doch imke ha'adoma, but it's still depth, it's still adoma, it's not the yam, it's not covered, it's still the depth of what is of the Adam. And therefore, because it's still on the koiches hageluyim, is the avodah nitshoila legamri. This service does not negate totally as that Adam ha'ived, that the person who is during the service soll sich afapeke fühlen als ametzias farzich, he still should feel himself an entity by himself, because this is all Adama, this is all the Geluyim, even though it's the depth of the person. Aristake, even Abaye mitachayis godly histake, serving Hashem with a great energy, und noch mehr, and even more, sich meshane und tut hepech tive v'regelosei. He changes himself and he does opposite of his nature and what he's comfortable with. Hecher von seine, but he changes and he does more. Hecher von seine medidas vagbolis, which is beyond his measures and limitation. Aber noch dem allem, but after all this, is yesh misha oyev. He's an entity who loves Hashem. He still remains an entity. Sein mitzias is be his galus. His existence is revealed. He is the person over there. He has that self feeling and being of self, notwithstanding that he serves Hashem, but he is serving Hashem, the person, and it goes even beyond his nature. It's he that is passionate in the service of Hashem. Even to the extent beyond measure and limitation, but it's still sensing the self. The person is the center of all this. Then we have the higher level of Chassidus zu öftern dem Inyan von Iskasya, to accomplish like the Yam, the cover up, as I Yid soll sein in ganzen zugedeckt, that the Yid should be entirely covered, und reingetan and immersed, bis über den Kopf, until over his head, in the source of his energy in Elikus and godliness, bisvane to the extent as is nit kein Metzius for sich, that he is no longer an entity for himself. That is the second step. That's the step of the Margolius Shabiyam that Chassidus does. It's a level of immersion that the person completely immerses himself in the Chassidus. You immerse yourself entirely, that you lose your mitzias in godliness. This takes place by learning the inner part of Torah, the mayones shebet the well springs of Torah. V'elikus gitzich arois ba'ifun goli, and where godliness presents itself in a revealed way in Chassidus. As explained in many places, that specifically in the study of Chassidus, over there is fully represents openly revealed godliness. As in Nigla the Torah, so in many places it says that in the revealed part of Torah, Ken Zain with the Gemara Zok, you can learn Torah. And the Gemara says, they did not make the bracha before they learned. That's why there was destruction. Which bracha? The birchas noisan ha-Torah, that the Eberste gave the Torah. You hold the Torah dear, but you're not making the bracha for the giver of the Torah, which means ben farges of birchas noisan ha-Torah chas v'shol. You forget to make the bracha, the one who gave the Torah, God forbid. That is more likely in the revealed part of Torah, Nigla. But when you study Chassidus, Mash'enken, in Pneumius HaTorah, when you, in the inner part of Torah, in the Mayonis, Filzich Elikus, over there you sense godliness. Chotsh nemt nit zu the Bechira, even though person still has a choice, even when you learn Chassidus. And so we're saying you sense godliness, so a person still has the option, has choice. You can sick, God forbid, them Yetzer Hara to instigate the Yetzer Hara in yourself. And to learn the inner parts of Torah in a non-desirable way, just by nigla. But that's not the natural way of mayonis is that you sense the godliness, but there is still a choice there. By nigla, it's possible to forget the Neisen HaTorah, the Baruch Hu BaTorah Tchila, the Neisen HaTorah, the Baruch Neisen HaTorah. But by Chassidus, naturally, you sense the godliness. So when you learn it, it becomes like the Yam, und durch dem. Was me lernt Chassidus beshufi. You learn Chassidus a lot. A lot of Chassidus. Wird man zugedeckt, then you become covered in Ganzen, totally covered, und reingetan in Göttlichkeit and immersed in godliness. Mayan me'ein wird sein lassen, is similar to what it's going to be in the future when Mol ha'oretz deya savai kamayim liyom chasim. The pasuk says that the world will be full of knowledge of Hashem as water covers the ocean. This is similarly by learning so much Chassidus that nowadays that is also covered by that learning. This is not the actual action. This is it's not as important as myself, because we find that even in the revealed part of Torah, there's some parts of Torah that we're just learning to expand the Torah without the practical application. Is similar to this. Also in the revealed part of Torah, we find there's a limud Torah from Yagdul Torah v'Yadid. You're learning Torah in order to increase Torah and to make it bigger, stronger, which means it's not for a practical application to figure out what to do, but just to increase the ideas of Torah. In welches is nit tokein nafkemine meise bepoilen, where there is no practical difference, comes out from that study. The limud is nor, this is in Nigla also, sometimes you just learn Deresh v'kabel schad, expound, get reward for it. Similarly, in Chassidus, because it's not for the actual doing, that is the kols, that's the koiches hageluyim, that's the warmth and the light to get. But this is addition. Dafar vertes zugeglichen zu margolius. That's why it is compared to pearls. They're not a necessity, totally necessary. A mensch can uplep maleben on margolius. A person can live his entire life without having any pearls. So therefore, that's not as necessary as is the light and the warmth, which is nothing. That's why these are compared to pearls. But the Rebbe says, but nowadays we need the pearls as well, because we're anticipating Mashiach's coming. Now we need the pearls as well. So that's, right now, that becomes a necessity, even though by the Friedrich Rebbe, when he said the Sikha, he said the pearls were the second step. The Rebbe explains now that because when you come to the king, there you got to put on nice jewelry. You need the margolies. Coming to Mashiach, we need those jewelry as well. Ches. When do we say this, that you can manage without having the pearls? Is das Norven and bleibt in the eigene Daladamas? It's only if you remain in your own 4 cubits. But when you gotta place yourself before the king, and not as the king is in the field, nor is behechel malchusei cheder lifnim cheder. In El, for example, the king is in the field, though, so you don't have to dress up for him, but you want to meet the king when he is in the room of his kingdom, in the palace, in the room, inside a room, in the most intimate places where the king finds himself. You want to meet the king over there. Over there, you need pearls. Demult is nit genug. Then it's not sufficient. As mezol haben alle levushim bishleimus, that we have all of our garments complete. I feel levushim for an usher, even if we have garments of a wealthy person. We need pearls. We also need to have tachshitim, jewelry, umargolias, and pearls. Unazelcha, you need such pearls that will be befitting. They'll be befitting. For somebody who needs to stand up and be before the king. And if you don't have those jewelry, you don't have those pearls, not only that you're missing a detail, this touches the honor of the king, that you're not coming dressed up with the pearls, with the jewelry. Similar is also in the lesson and the moral of this. Those was limud hachasidus al sarinyan farzich. The fact that the limud hachasidus, the fact that for itself, not for the purpose in helping the person battle and overcome, but just to Chassidus, the level of Yam, for the neshama itself. So the dominion from Das Elekei Avicha, to know Hashem, to learn, to knowing Hashem, not for the purpose of impacting like the Gecholim of the life, but Chassidus in itself, to know Hashem, is need given as a hechrech. Then it wasn't such a necessity is in free the Kedoros. This was in previous generation. Eideres hat sich angeheben the letzte Hachones. Before this latest preparation started to be as a Mashiach, to the coming of Mashiach. The Mele is not given as a hechrech in Margolius, and therefore there wasn't such a necessity to have pearls. But when we are holding, by hin is behold, he is standing behind our walls, meaning that Mashiach is just about to come. He is here. Ot kum Mashiach. Mashiach is just about to come. Bos biviyosei is kaitz some lacheshach. When he comes, there will be an end to the darkness. We start the true and complete redemption. But in Yono, the redemption will bring about is Kimavur become a Mekoimis, as explained in many places, that the Geula is the Nisuyim. That's sort of the marriage, so to speak, from the Yidden with Neighborston. From Yidden with Hashem, we're intimately getting close to Hashem. We need pearls over there. There's an intimacy here. There's a connection, a marriage between Yidden with Hashem, with the coming of Mashiach. As wird is Gale werden, it will be revealed. We can see revealed that the Yidden are really one thing, so to speak, with Hashem. As a marriage is, the husband and the wife, they become united as one flesh, become revealed that we're one with Hashem. Yisrael umalko bil chidoi, using the Zohar Loshen that it's the Yidden and their king alone. So therefore, we need to prepare ourselves in a fitting way for this. And we need to have the pearls mit welchem and gate to the chuppah, with which you go to the chuppah. These are the pearls that you go in before the marriage. Mit melech malcham loch makadosh baruch hu, with the king who kings kings, Hashem. Memuz learning Chassidus ubeshufi. We need to learn Chassidus, and in a plentiful, a lot. And this is also would be an answer, as the Rebbe says now in those tests. The person says, okay, I manage without pearls. So the Rebbe needs to explain. He says, you're saying the second aspect of Chassidus is that it's like the pearls. says, I'll just have bread and water, the necessities of life, but I manage without pearls. And that's where we say no. You must have today pearls also. Yes. Das is euch der Antwort zu dem, was Teine. This is also the answer those argue. Takas Chassidus is a good Zach. Let it be true that Chassidus is something good, etc. V'adrabe. Not only is it good, das Ainyan was wird zugeglichen zu Margolius. This is a matter which has been equated to pearls. Aber juckt sich nicht nach Margolius, but he is not running after pearls. Im is genug, he says, I'm sufficient for me. As eine Levushim, Machshove, Dibun, Umaise, Shel Taryag, Mitzvah Torah. His thought, speech, and action of the 600 mitzvahs of the Torah, Zayin Bishlemus are complete. Happy with that level, not looking for pearls. Unrotach Shitrim Oich, and he has other jewels, but why does he need pearls? Aber Margolius felt him nito, he's not missing these pearls. Darf man wissen, that's why it's need to know, as Neusef to them. In addition to the fact what says Zadin in Shulchan Aruch, that this is a law in the Shulchan Aruch, Achiyuv to learn the Pnimius HaTorah, an obligation to learn the inner part of Torah, Be'ala Chelkei HaTorah, just as all portions of the Torah. Unochmer, and even more than just having the obligation like other parts of Torah, because of the dark mitzadim chayshech fun ikvasa de Mashiach, because of the darkness we're in the heel of Mashiach. Muzmen haben dem limud hachasidus. We need to have the study of Chasidus, kidei as the levushim zon sein ganz, so that even the garments should be whole. Kiniska leil. You need the gecholim. You need that the chayis, that everything should be whole. You need Chassidus for that. In addition to that, is there Seder von Yinit Yogen sich noch Margoli, so that order of not to chase after pearls and be satisfied, had gehat an ort, this had room, that idea fit in Friedrich Kedeiris in the previous generation. It's aber now, however, when behold, he's standing right behind our walls. Darf man sich greiten sein great. We need to prepare ourselves to be ready. Gehen zu der Chuppah, to go to the Chuppah, mit Melech Malcha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the king, that king's king Hashem. Was heißt der juckt sich nicht nach Margolius? What does it mean you're not going after? You got to get married, so you need those pearls. In Zohar state, it says in the Zohar, as bisman hagolus, that in the time of exile, zane Eden v'akala, that the Eden can be compared to a bride, was gefindt sich in Shuka, the bursike. She's the marketplace of the tanneries. There's a terrible smell coming from all the tanners. But the kala is in Golus, is in that marketplace where there's a terrible smell, was mitzad the größer Arbeit zu sein kala. But the Zohar says because the Eberster has so much love for his kala, is the chosen, the Eberster, so the chosen, the groom, Hashem mevaterev dem reach rashel shuka de bursiki, he forgoes that bad smell of the marketplace of the tanners, hagolus, and gate dort wo the kala is, and he goes to the kala, Eden Zayna, wherever you are. So that's okay in Golus. Those is outside Seder for Zman HaGolus. That's the order in the time of Golus. It's this gekommen the Zeit, but now the time has arrived when as darf sein da loy Golus. Get away from Golus. Ois Golus, no more Golus. Noch Zaynik in Mitzrayim, but even as in Mitzrayim, as the Pasuk said, is L'chol b'nei Yisrael hoya oir b'moishveisom, to all the Yidden there was light. They didn't go out of Mitzrayim yet in Golus, and yet the Pasuk said all the Yidden had light in their settlements. Zayin great to the Geula Hamitis Vashlema. We need to be ready for the true and complete redemption. It was haste as megreitzich to the chuppah. So what does it mean? How could it be? We're getting ready for the chuppah, no pearls? Mit levushim velchazayin genug, with such garments which are sufficient, and the gas is ashukah the bursike when you're in a marketplace of the tanners in such a time. Those are not the fitting garments to go ahead and greet the chosen in the time for the Geulah. Durch them, was man great sich in the boy to the chuppah. And through this, that we prepare ourselves properly to the chuppah, mit neighbors with Hashem, mit aribu from Margolius, with a lot of pearls. Then verflates the welt, you flood the world, mit limud ha-chasidus, kamaim liyamad chasim, with the study of Chasidus, just as water covers the ocean. Is those gufa, that alone with mizares, that hastens, or makes quicker, that you should be able to celebrate actually the Simcha Gedoyla, the great Simcha from the Nisuyin of the marriage between Eden, between the Eden and Hashem. You'll see with the eyes of flesh, and here below 10 Tvachim, vividly over here, as the Yidden and Hashem are really one. Yisrael Malka B'Chadoi, Yidden and their king alone. And very soon in our days. This is Mesichas Simchas Beis HaShe'eva Tovshin Chof Aleph.